If you know your Subaru parts, then you might be familiar with this piece. But if you're not, let me give you a little bit of an introduction. This piece is pretty much only available in Japan now and costs you about $200 US. And well, today, we're going to be installing it on my 2004 Subaru Forester. Now you're probably asking yourself, why does this piece of plastic cost over $200? Well, it was a factory option that Subaru provided, particularly in Japan. There was some availability in North America, but as far as I know, those parts are few and far between, so they pretty much have to come from Japan. And well, this does a really cool thing. Typically, our radio is down here, but it allows us to move our double DIN right up here on the dash. So no more looking down to check your navigation or change your music. It goes right there. So today's install should be relatively simple. There's one concern I have with regards to moving this up here that we'll have to address once we start opening up the car, because it's been almost 3 years since I installed the radio. And well, to install it, it's actually pretty simple. Because it is going here, it's all about just popping off this box here and undoing a couple screws. The only issue is, if you have a radio, your radio is going to be moved up here. So you're going to have to do the reverse of what you did to install your radio, and well, pop this off. This, as I said, it's about taking the clips off. There's a little bit of plastic clips. Use a trim tool for this guy because it's going to make your life a lot easier. And then all it really is popping this off, taking that off, and you already have this bucket out. You really don't need any of this. Some people like to relocate the clock. Because I have a double DIN with the clock, I'm actually just going to completely delete this. There's also some cars that do have the passenger airbag in here. Obviously, this car doesn't, so I can just delete this whole box and put it to the side and get ready to put the radio in. And with a good squeeze of this clip, it pops right out of the back, and you really don't have anything to worry about. You actually do have your light replacement if you were wanting to change the backlight, but as I said, we can just go ahead and take this and put it off to the side. Even though this car is eternally dusty because of our off-road adventures, I am going to take the time to kind of clean in here because, well, you don't get the opportunity to clean in here very often. So we're going to take it and just get a little bit more dust out of this car. Or try to, at least. And with that all wiped off, let's go ahead and tackle the lower section here, which actually should be super easy because, well, I've done this quite a few times. There's just a couple screws here that we get to, and then this faceplate removes, and the radio can come out with it. Now that we got the radio, we can address the concern I have with this, and I think we'll be fine, but it is noted that when you install this, your harness needs to be quite a bit longer because the OEM one only goes to right here. And if you're installing a radio that was OEM, obviously you would have quite the issue plugging that in. That said, I think we're able to run it up through this little hole. There's a little hole on this side. I guess there's a hole on this side too, but this one's a bit bigger. And you're able to run your harness right up through there. And yeah, we have lots of room. So if you have an aftermarket harness for connecting your radio, you should be fine. If you try to splice into the OEM one, good luck. You're going to have to make a longer harness because the OEM one reaches to right about there. And then with your radio out, you're actually be switching up the mounting bracket. So these are the OEM ones used to mount the radio. And it will say like Radio USA LNS. When you're purchasing the kit with the pieces of plastic, you want to make sure that you do get the middle brackets with it. They'll say like nav right hand SA. And these actually will mount onto the same spots, and that allows you to mount this in the dash. So without these metal brackets that come with the kit, you're pretty much out of luck. So make sure you definitely get it when you purchase this. And then once you get your radio brackets on, you can go ahead and start assembling this. So our first piece is going to be this little plate down here. So it will clip in here and then use two of the typical Subaru screws with regards to the trim panel. So you put one there and one there. And then once you have your plastic piece on here, you can go ahead and install your radio. So obviously the connections on here aren't too bad. The one I do have a concern with is the antenna. I might have to leave the antenna unplugged if I can't get it to fit when it's sitting there. But other than that, if you have an extended harness, you're good. And then obviously any other extensions, you should be able to kind of run like our USB and so forth. And well, we struggled for a little bit, but we're just not going to have AM and FM radio. It's not like we use it anyways. But what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to make sure that our connections all still work. So we're going to go ahead, key on the car, and see if the radio turns on. And look at that. So we do have a working radio up here. That means that we can go ahead and start to go ahead and put this all back together. And well, putting it back together is relatively simple. I would argue it's actually easier than putting the radio down below because our screws are like really easy to put in right here. And we just gotta screw them in and we are good to go. With the radio all tied down, that means we get to attach our final piece. This is just held on by your typical Subaru plastic clips. So you wanna be careful anytime you gotta remove this or put this on, but it should be just easy as pushing it down and getting all the clips to seat right. And then look at that, you have the radio, and as you can see, it's a standard double din, which is awesome, and it fits actually better than the OEM or this radio in the OEM spot, I think, just because of the way it sits. This sits almost flush, so you got a little bit of a resting spot, and well, I think that looks awesome. And with that said, we can go ahead and put this all back together, which will be easier now that we don't have a radio in there. Just be mindful that you're going to want to go ahead and make sure your hazards are clicked in. And if you're ever wondering how to get this piece of plastic off, what I would recommend is take your car and just put it in neutral. It makes, or even first or second, it makes sliding this so much easier. And just go ahead and clip this back into place. And there you have it. We have our radio relocated. And well, was this worth it for the $200? Well, I'll let you in on a little secret. If you're not a member and you haven't seen my members only unboxing of, well, my package from Japan, I didn't pay $200 for this. I was able to get it on a little bit of a shipment from Japan and I got it for way cheaper off of Yahoo auctions. So in my opinion, this was 100% worth it. Is it worth $200? I would say so. If you're looking to move it from down here to a much better position, honestly, I would much prefer this rather than down here. If you have navigation or if you have any important information on here, it's just so much more helpful because my line of sight is right here. That said, with it moved up here, it does free up some space here. I do have some ideas, and I've talked about it in my members only stuff as well as the Sunday live streams. But I'm curious what you guys would put in here. I do know Subaru makes a really cool like refrigerator box. That is even harder to find than this and even more expensive. So I don't think I'll be doing that. But as I said, I do have some ideas, but I'd love to hear what you guys think here. And while you're down there, let me know if you'd install one of these on your car. From this perspective, they kind of look like the GTR hoods that we see on the Skylines. With that said, this pretty much wraps up the install of, well, the relocation of my double din stereo with a $200 part from Japan. So before you go ahead and check out another one of my videos, don't forget to go ahead and check out the channel memberships as well as Flat for Off-Road for all your adventure Subaru needs. And with that being said, I'll be seeing you guys in the next adventure.